Let me gently say something that might be hard to hear. There are 6 quiet shifts in the way she messages you that don't just suggest something's wrong, they quietly confirm it. These signs don't shout like lipstick on a collar or a strange number in her phone. No, those usually come way too late. What I'm talking about are the small changes in daily conversations, the kind you might have brushed off, the kind that seem innocent until you notice the pattern. If you've been feeling that something's off, but you just can't put your finger on it, stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll know what those subtle signs really mean. And hey, if you're tired of second-guessing your gut and just want to know the truth, tap that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. This is a safe space. We talk about the real stuff here, the things no one else dares to say about relationships. You deserve clarity and peace.
Most people tell you to look for lipstick on collars or strange numbers in her phone, but by the time you find those smoking guns, you've been living with the reality for months. The real signs are hidden in plain sight in the messages she sends you every day. Her guilt, her compartmentalization, her emotional withdrawal, it all shows up in how she communicates with you, not with him. These patterns I'm about to show you aren't warning signs, they're confirmation signs. By the time you're seeing multiple patterns, the affair has become intimate. She's emotionally detached, and she's already made her choice. Understanding this isn't about catching her in the act, it's about protecting your sanity, your time, and your emotional investment from someone who's already checked out. The hardest part about these patterns is that they're designed to be invisible. She's not trying to get caught. She's trying to maintain the appearance of a normal relationship while living a double life. But guilt and deception always leave traces, and those traces show up most clearly in daily communication. Message pattern number 1, the timestamp gaps that tell stories. Listen carefully to this first pattern because it's the most revealing. She used to respond throughout the day, quick little messages, staying connected. You had a rhythm, a flow of communication that made you feel close even when apart. Now, there are gaps, 2 hours, 4 hours, sometimes an entire afternoon of digital silence. When she finally responds, she always has logical explanations. Phone died, swamped at work, didn't see your message, back-to-back meetings, client emergency. These explanations sound completely reasonable. They're the kind of things that happen to everyone. But here's what she's not telling you and what your gut is trying to process. Affairs that cross certain boundaries require uninterrupted time blocks. She can't risk receiving your messages during intimate moments. Think about the psychology of this. When you're being close with someone, your phone becomes a threat. One text from you could destroy the mood, create awkwardness, remind her of her guilt, or worse, make her feel like the cheating wife she's become in that exact moment. So, she creates digital dead zones around her private encounters. She puts her phone on silent, airplane mode, or leaves it in another room entirely. These aren't random communication gaps. They follow patterns, usually the same times of day, the same days of the week. They align perfectly with her supposed lunch meetings, gym sessions, errands, or girls' nights. But here's the psychological tell that reveals her guilt. She over-apologizes for these delayed responses. A simple, "sorry, just saw this," becomes paragraphs of explanation. She's not just explaining to you, she's trying to convince herself that she has legitimate reasons for going dark. The guilt makes her overcompensate with unnecessary details and excessive justification. I once analyzed a case where every Tuesday and Thursday she had communication gaps between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., always apologized profusely.
Always had elaborate explanations about client meetings or gym classes that ran long. Turns out those were her standing appointment times with her affair partner. The guilt made her create these elaborate cover stories for what should have been simple delays. Pay attention to the pattern,
not the individual excuse. Any single gap might be explainable, but repeated gaps at the same times suggest scheduled betrayal. Her phone behavior is creating a digital map of her infidelity, and the timestamps don't lie. Message pattern number 2, the emotional temperature drop. Her messages used to have emotional warmth, personality, and connection. I miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight. Thinking about you while stuck in this boring meeting. Her texts had life, had her personality, had genuine affection and interest in your shared life. Now her messages read like business communications between polite strangers. See you tonight. Sounds good. Running late. Okay. Pure logistics. No emotion, no affection, no personal connection. It's like receiving updates from an efficient personal assistant who happens to live in your house. This happens because emotional energy is finite and hers is being invested elsewhere. She has a limited capacity for emotional connection and she's spending it on him. What's left for you are the practical necessities of maintaining the appearance of a relationship without the actual emotional investment. But there's a deeper psychological mechanism at work here. When someone is betraying you in such an intimate way, expressing emotional connection through text starts to feel false to them. Their guilt makes loving words toward you feel like lies, so they avoid them entirely. It's psychologically easier to keep communication surface level than to fake emotions she's giving to someone else. You'll notice she stops asking how you are. She doesn't engage with your stories about work, friends, or daily experiences. She doesn't share her own feelings, thoughts, or experiences beyond basic logistics. The texts become purely transactional. What time will you be home? Can you pick up groceries? Did you remember to pay the electric bill? She's compartmentalized you into the practical partner box while he gets the passionate partner box. Her communication reflects this cruel division. With him, she's probably sending emoji-filled, flirty, emotionally charged messages full of excitement and anticipation. With you, she's become a polite roommate managing household logistics. This emotional distance in texts often happens weeks or months before distance becomes obvious in person. She's already detached emotionally, and her phone communication is the first place this detachment reveals itself. By the time you notice it in person, the emotional affair has become something much more serious, and she's already mentally moved on. Message pattern number 3, the defensive deflection response system. It is the most psychologically revealing because it shows her internal state of guilt-induced paranoia. Simple, innocent questions now produce defensive, almost hostile responses. You ask normal relationship questions, and suddenly you're being accused of being suspicious, controlling, or invasive. Your text, "How is your day?" Her response, "Why? Is there something specific you want to know?" Your text, "Running late tonight?" Her response, "Yes, I'm running late. Is that a crime? I told you I had dinner with Sarah. Why are you tracking my every move?"
Your text, "Everything okay? You seem distant." Her response, "I'm fine. Why do you always think something's wrong? Can't I just have a quiet day without being interrogated?" This defensiveness comes from guilt-induced paranoia. When someone is living a double life, they assume every question has hidden meaning. They project their own deception onto your innocent inquiries. In her mind, you must be suspicious because she knows she's giving you legitimate reasons to be suspicious. She's fighting a psychological battle where every interaction with you forces her to lie or carefully omit the truth. But here's what's really happening on a deeper level. She's managing two contradictory realities. The reality where she's a faithful partner responding to your normal relationship communication, and the reality where she's a cheating partner hiding her affair.
Every innocent question from you requires her to quickly assess which reality she needs to respond from, and this mental effort makes her reactive and defensive. The defensive deflection serves another insidious purpose. It trains you to stop asking questions. If every inquiry is met with hostility and accusations, you'll eventually stop inquiring. She's conditioning you to give her the space and privacy she needs to continue her affair without interference. Your natural curiosity about your partner's life becomes reframed as an invasion of privacy. Pay attention to when this shift happened. Normal relationship interest shouldn't be treated as a criminal investigation. When asking, "How was your day?" becomes a fight, she's protecting something she desperately doesn't want you to discover. Her defensiveness is proportional to what she's hiding. Message pattern number 4, the schedule smokescreen communication strategy. The fourth pattern is sophisticated psychological misdirection. She becomes suddenly unusually specific about mundane activities. Instead of her usual going out with the girls, you now get detailed itineraries. Meeting Sarah at that new Italian place on 5th Street at 7 p.m., then maybe checking out that bookstore she mentioned. Should be back around 10:30, but you know how we all lose track of time when we get talking. This isn't transparency. This is smokescreen communication designed to create a false sense of openness. She's providing excessive detail about innocent activities to hide her guilty ones. It's a psychological trick where overwhelming you with verifiable information about things that don't matter makes you feel informed while keeping you completely in the dark about things that do matter. The psychology behind this is guilt management and cognitive dissonance reduction. By giving you lots of honest information about her innocent activities, she convinces herself that she's not really lying to you. She's just not telling you everything. It's a mental game she plays to maintain her self-image as an honest person while living fundamentally dishonestly. But here's where it gets really sophisticated. She often uses real activities to hide fake ones. She really is meeting Sarah for dinner at 7 p.m., but she's not going straight home afterward like she implies. She's meeting him for 2 hours, then coming home.
Having such a great time with Sarah. This place is amazing. Definitely staying longer than planned. You know how it is when you haven't seen someone in forever? What she's really doing is creating justification for coming home late. The staying longer isn't with Sarah, it's with him. But the text creates a believable cover story. These detailed scheduled texts often include unnecessary proof. Photos of her food, screenshots of restaurant locations, selfies with friends, even receipts. She's building evidence for the innocent parts of her evening while carefully hiding the guilty parts. The excessive documentation is overcompensation for the parts she can't document. The red flag isn't the detail itself. It's the sudden change from general to specific communication, combined with the fact that all this detail still doesn't explain the behavior changes you're noticing when she comes home. Message pattern number 5, the intimacy and future avoidance protocol. It reveals her emotional detachment through systematic avoidance of intimacy and future planning in your communication. She stops talking about your relationship, your future together, your shared experiences and memories. She avoids any we statements like they're toxic. She deflects conversations about feelings, plans, dreams, or anything that acknowledges you as a couple. Before the affair, she might have texted, "We should try that new restaurant everyone's talking about," or "I saw the cutest couple today and it made me think about our anniversary trip," or "Can't wait for our weekend getaway." Now everything becomes singular and disconnected. "I might check out that new place," or "saw an interesting movie trailer," with no suggestion that you might experience these things together. This happens because she's no longer thinking of you as a team or partnership. Her future planning involves someone else. Making plans with you feels dishonest because she's not sure you'll be in her future. Every we statement forces her to confront the fact that she's already mentally moved on while still living the pretense of your relationship. The intimacy avoidance extends beyond future planning to immediate romantic and emotional connection. She used to initiate flirty texts, suggest date nights, send sweet messages, or share intimate thoughts and feelings. Now she deflects any romantic or personal communication. Too tired becomes her default response to any suggestion of closeness, whether emotional or otherwise. But there's a deeper psychological layer here. She avoids these conversations because they make her feel guilty about where her romantic and emotional energy is actually going. It's psychologically difficult to be flirty with you via text when she's being close with someone else. The contrast makes her dishonesty too obvious, even to herself. You'll notice she stopped seeking emotional comfort from you via text. Bad days at work used to result in long message conversations where she vented and you provided support. Stressful situations used to bring her closer to you digitally. Now she handles her emotional needs elsewhere or simply doesn't share them with you at all. She's found another source of emotional support, and it's not you. This communication pattern reveals that she's not just emotionally unfaithful, she's checked out entirely. She's no longer investing in your relationships, present or future, because she's investing in someone else's.
Message pattern number 6. The guilt compensation message system. This is the most psychologically complex because it appears positive while actually confirming your worst fears. She suddenly sends sweet, loving messages that seem to come out of nowhere. You're such an amazing boyfriend. I feel so lucky to have you. Want to do something special this weekend? You really deserve it. Just thinking about how wonderful you are. Random compliments and gestures that feel forced, rehearsed, or completely disconnected from your recent interactions. These guilt compensation messages often appear after she's been with him. It's her psychological attempt to balance the scales of her betrayal. If she treats you extra well, maybe she can offset the fact that she's betraying you. If she tells you you're amazing, maybe she can convince herself she's not doing something terrible to an amazing person. It's emotional mathematics that never actually balances. The timing of these messages is the critical tell. They don't align with anything special you've done or any particularly positive interaction you've had recently. They appear out of nowhere, often after periods of distance, communication gaps, or defensive behavior. They feel scripted, like she's checking items off a good girlfriend checklist rather than expressing genuine emotion. This pattern reveals her internal psychological conflict. Part of her genuinely knows what she's doing is wrong, and this creates real guilt and cognitive dissonance. But instead of stopping the affair, she tries to manage the guilt by being artificially sweet to you. It's psychologically easier to send a loving text than to end her betrayal and face the consequences. Pay attention to how these messages feel in your body, not just how they sound to your hopeful mind. Do they feel connected to recent shared experiences and genuine interactions? Or do they feel random and disconnected from your actual relationship dynamic? Genuine affection grows organically from real moments and shared experiences. Guilt compensation appears suddenly from nowhere and disappears just as quickly. By the time you're seeing multiple patterns, the physical affair is established and routine. These aren't early warning signs. They're the communication signature of someone living a double life. Her phone behavior reflects her emotional reality, and her emotional reality is that she's already moved on. The goal of recognizing these patterns isn't to catch her or confront her with digital evidence. The goal is clarity. Clarity about where you really stand. Clarity about whether you're fighting for a relationship that still exists
or clinging to one that's already over. Don't become a digital detective. Don't screenshot every message or analyze every timestamp. These patterns are for your awareness, not for building a case. Obsessing over her communication patterns will drive you crazy and won't change the fundamental reality they reveal. Instead, match her energy. If her texts are emotionally distant, don't try to force connection through your messages. If she's being logistical, respond logistically. Stop investing more emotional energy than she's giving. Focus on your own life. The time you're spending analyzing her messages could be spent building relationships and activities that actually bring you joy. Don't let her communication patterns become your obsession. Remember that her communication patterns are telling you exactly where you stand in her priorities. Listen to what they're saying. A woman who's invested in your relationship communicates like someone who's invested. A woman who's checked out communicates like someone who's checked out. You deserve someone who's excited to text you back, someone whose messages bring you closer instead of creating distance, someone who doesn't need guilt compensation because they're not doing anything to feel guilty about. The message behind all these messages is simple. She's telling you exactly who she's become and where you stand. The question is, are you ready